As we all know, our exams are on hand and we still confuse what to learn, which topic should pick up first, and what will come in exams. So, today I'm going to discuss important question series part 2. Describe briefly the downward filtration theory. During the British rule in India, the downward filtration theory was adopted in the country. Filtration means coming of something to the bottom from top. Thus, filtration theory in education means coming down of education or knowledge from the top to the bottom, that is, from the higher people to the lower classes or the general people. There were many reasons for adopting this policy. Different views have been expressed about this policy. Some people think that this policy was adopted because of the narrow-mindedness of selfish attitude of English who intended to educate only a few for getting clerk for running their administration. They adopted this policy because they wanted to create an elite group which would be given high posts in the administration, and this group in turn would influence the general public for accepting the British rule in the country. In fact, according to some people, the main reason for adopting this policy was the meager financial resources with the company for educational purpose. The company thought that it could not provide education to entire mass, so it decided to educate only a few. But these few were the people of the higher classes, because they alone could catch up the opportunity for the English education. The downward filtration theory had the following three chief characteristics: to educate only the high class people in order to give them higher posts in the administration, with a view to strengthening the root of British Empire in the country. Second is, when the higher class people would receive English education, their culture would improve and the general public would accept them as their model. As a result, the lower class people would also be educated after being influenced by the higher class people. Third, to educate the higher class people who might undertake the responsibility of educating the general people. Beside the Occidental Oriental controversy, the company had to face another problem during this period. This problem pertained to education of the general masses. The company was to decide whether to limit itself to education of the higher class people alone or to provide for education of all. The company took no time in reaching a decision in this regard, as the board of director gave clear-cut direction in this context. Lord Macaulay explained the same by observing that the aim of education in India was to anglicize the Indian through English education and to make black-colored Indian English in their way of living, behavior, thought, culture, tradition, and morality. As such, persons were likely to serve as a connecting link between the British government and the general people. Failure of the downfiltration theory of education. Full purpose of downfiltration theory could not be that could have only a partial achievement in the sense government got a few educated people, Indian, who could in running the administration. But these few Indian could not serve as connecting link between the British government and the general people. The English educated Indian could improve the culture and way of living by the former class of their own and drifted away from the general people. Thus, the general public was in the way ignored by them, as by and large they become more interested, making themselves richer and richer. As a result, education became concentrated only to those who had money. Thus, the filtration theory really failed. There were two principal causes for this failure. First, the first cause of the failure of the filtration theory was that too many English educated Indians come out in the field and it was not possible for the government to give them suitable employment according to their expectation. This situation leads to the unemployment. For ending their unemployment, these persons open some schools on the Western pattern. Thus, a number of new English schools sprang up, and the educational need of the people was met up to some extent. The second cause of the failure of the filtration theory was that it created a feeling of self respect, national honor, and independence in the English educated Indian. These reawakened people could not be tempted by government service and they took a vow to fight for nation independence. For regenerating the people, these enlightened persons began to spread education. Thus, education ultimately reached the people. However, the filtration theory continued its impact till 1970, somehow or other, but because of the forces, two main causes this theory could not achieve its main objective fully. It was only a partial success. Private enterprises engaged in the field of education did a lot towards educating the people and creating in them a love for freedom. Thus, the work for national regeneration and educational passion began. Second, why did Macaulay purpose to spend the government fund for the improvement of English rather than Oriental language? Answer is this. On July 31st, 1837, Lord Macaulay again explained this point of view by stating that the purpose of company was only to educate the elite people which would educate the general public, later thus fulfilling the goal of educating the masses in general. In 1839, the General Committee of Public Instruction again repeated the stand that education would be given only to the higher class people who, who should shoulder the responsibilities of educating their countrymen. During the company rule, missionaries were encouraged to work in the field of education and they opened a number of schools and colleges for educating children of the higher class family. They thought that if they succeed in educating the higher class people and converting them to their own Christian faith, these converted people would preach Christianity among the lower class people. Evidently, the educational effort of the missionaries were religiously motivated and not politically, but only some lower class people would be influenced by this missionary and the bulk of the Indian population remained unaffected by them. That is why did Macaulay purpose to spend the government fund for the improvement of English rather than the Oriental literature. Here are the few word meanings which will help you to understand properly. If you like my video, please subscribe it and do not forget to share it and like it. Thank you very much.